Catharsis is a wonderful feeling, that sense of satisfaction that washes over you after doing or seeing something either physically, mentally, or emotionally beneficial. It's a natural human reaction. And the art we create often uses catharsis as well in the form of a payoff, seeing a build-up and then the proper resolution to a situation. And lately I've been watching two shows that are phenomenal when it comes to executing this. Great Pretender, a recent Netflix anime, and Leverage, a live-action TNT series that aired around the turn of the last decade. Both series have a lot in common, and I want to explore what they do that leads to such a cathartic release from viewers. Funnily enough, I only started watching Leverage after I was trying to hook a friend on Great Pretender, and they said my pitch sounded familiar. The premise of each is a group of con artists and/or criminals pulling a fast one on people who are often not held accountable for their misdeeds due to their wealth and/or influence. In Leverage, it's common for the person in question to have wronged many people, with the episode honing in on a specific individual for the sake of the crew finding out about their wrongdoing. For Great Pretender, the marks typically have their scumbaggery conveyed through either exposition from someone in the main cast, or through showing parts of their vile nature as the arc progresses. Which is another distinction. Great Pretender so far has had 3 independent arcs split amongst its first 14 episodes, leaving ample time to flesh out the antagonist during that runtime. Leverage, despite being a 40-minute show, is still overall shorter on the basis of storyline, since the shortest case in Great Pretender is close to twice that length. That being said, both can be and are effective in getting you to hate the person who the group is squaring up to con, which is crucial to that catharsis. The worse the individual, the sweeter it is to see them get their just desserts. And on one hand, with Leverage, you get to see a more consistent drip of that extrajudicial action, but with Great Pretender, the scumbag is often on the hook for larger amounts. So it just kinda depends on what you're in the mood for. But often what's just as satisfying as seeing these greedy capitalistic marks get done in is how it happens. That's where the con comes in. In a similar fashion to the person being conned, Leverage and Great Pretender have different approaches in the structure to their plans due to the different length in their stories, but it's also in part due to the makeup of each crew. The characters in Leverage fill a very specific niche in their group. Elliot is the muscle who's built like a tank and can single-handedly take down scores of armed enemies. It's literally his introduction. You've also got Hardison, an expert hacker when it comes to basically any electronic device, even just a hotel TV and keyboard. He's also a bit of an editor.
It took me 13 hours.
God, that's too relatable. But moving on, Parker is the resident thief who's a master lockpick and infiltrator. Sophie is an ace grifter thanks to her acting background, allowing her to play virtually any role necessary for the con.
Come on. Let's go and talk somewhere a little less formal, eh?
And last but not least, we have Nathan Ford, the mastermind behind the group's plans who coordinates every move to ensure the job is successful. Now, despite their individual roles, it's not uncommon for each of them to still have to act or play a specific part for the con. This is the way it's primarily done in Great Pretender, because while I could assign general roles to that cast in a similar fashion, Laurent being the mastermind, Abby the muscle, and Cynthia even shares an acting background like with Sophie, making her a convincing grifter, these are all far more general descriptions than in Leverage. To that end, I wasn't even sure what role to give to Edamura since what he does in each case continues to change. But this doesn't mean one approach to the group dynamic is inherently superior. The Leverage crew operates more along the tropes of a found family, with plenty of moments showing how close the group becomes.
So what do we do now? I want to kill him. Can we make that happen?
Yeah, I could.
Compare this to Great Pretender, whose group thus far has been characterized more as a collective of lone wolves coming together to take down a bigger target.
We're not a team. We're independent. Screw up and we'll dump you. The only person you can trust is yourself.
These discrepancies, combined with the different levels of apparent specialization, naturally lead to their cons differing in structure and approach. Jumping back to leverage, the high level of skill each member of the cast has in their respective field is often just a means to an end. It allows for more complex jobs because, well, you don't have to question how Hardison is going to hack that computer or trace the necessary phone, or if Parker can successfully infiltrate and secure a vault, because it's just a setup for the next stage. But there's also a certain catharsis in seeing these workarounds. Watching the crew manage to find and exploit cracks in the system is entertaining, even if it isn't always the most realistic. It's also fun to just watch Elliot beat the crap out of people sometimes. Plus, you often aren't privy to the full ramifications of a particular scheme, which leads to another sense of satisfaction when you see it all come together by the end of an episode. But Leverage also shakes up this formula after its first season, often having the cons slip up in some way, making you wonder how this new conflict will be resolved, only for it to be revealed in many cases that this slip-up was accounted for, if not planned into the overall operation, setting up an entirely new and satisfying payoff because it just makes the antagonist come off as either more competent or makes their escape from justice more likely. So it's all the more cathartic to see them still ultimately fall. Great Pretender does this as well at the end of its first arc, by keeping Cynthia's role in everything a secret until that point, which was a great reveal and provided an immediate dose of satisfaction in realizing Eddie Cassano had just been taken for all he was worth, and the whole scheme is revealed to have been planned in advance by Laurent. There's also some dialogue in the third case that suggests any of the twists and turns in that one specifically, despite him supposedly being hands-off, had also been accounted for by Laurent in a similar fashion to Nate.
Interesting. Why would I do that?
Because you wanted to dig up my past trauma for your own amusement, who knows?
But by and large so far, their schemes have been decidedly less complex, at least from a technological angle. I think the most sophisticated equipment they've used has been polarizing film sheets in the second case. But there's no hacking of the mainframe or bypassing extreme security measures. Their cons mainly rely on their opponent doing themselves in. This happens in Leverage as well, but since in Great Pretender there is no third party that takes priority in recovering a stolen asset or money for, the aims of the crew are often far loftier, seeking to fully scam their marks out of most of their wealth. This goes hand in hand with the more low-tech approach, letting the opposition do most of the work for them, bribing, gambling, or spending their fortunes willingly in an environment that has been almost entirely staged. That's where this series pulls on its wilder strings. Instead of opting for the more high-tech jargon, Great Pretender instead accounts for as many contingencies as possible and uses a level of manpower often not seen in its live-action counterparts. From Edamura being scammed in the first episode, to the boxing ring at the start of the second case, to the underground casino in Singapore, or the black market auction in France, everyone other than the Mark is in on the con. There's a wonderful sense of schadenfreude, watching them flaunt their wealth or influence with a sense of impunity, all while not realizing they're in the belly of the beast, and we're the spectators just waiting for it to all come together. It's a great feedback loop because the more they buy in, the more f***ed we know they are, the most perfect depiction of which comes during the climax of Cynthia's arc in the third case. But with that said, we are left with a question. Which is better? Well, drumroll please. Neither. Yep, surprise, but for as much as I compared these two, I don't want to declare a winner per se. Each is incredibly effective at what they're ultimately trying to do, and if you're a fan of one, I definitely encourage you to check out the other and judge for yourself. There's certainly more of Leverage by volume, so if you value that, you might like it a bit more, especially if you like that found family dynamic because it only strengthens as the series goes on. There's also a great sense of chemistry and camaraderie between the cast, and that only adds to the effect. Also, as a fun fact that shows a level of authenticity, the producers of the show actually hired a professional pickpocket as a consultant, so a lot of those techniques in particular that you see are the real deal. He even has a cameo in one episode where he goes toe-to-toe with Parker in the illicit art form. So that's a little tidbit that I personally really enjoy. But if you prefer things like longer story arcs with more diverse settings taking you all over the globe and to in and out, complemented by a frankly stunning color palette, great character designs, and a wonderfully jazzy soundtrack, then Great Pretender might win out for you. And I know those descriptions might sound like I'm favoring one. I promise it's just a symptom of me being more used to writing and talking about anime than live action stuff. And just looking at Great Pretender, I couldn't not mention some of the most beautiful things about it. Either way, both of these series leave strong impressions quickly, so you should know whether or not one's for you pretty soon after starting. In my opinion though, they both succeed in the most important area, providing a sweet catharsis at seeing some truly rotten, exploitative people getting what they deserve. But those are just my thoughts, and as always, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do you have any interesting opinions on either Leverage or Great Pretender? A preference between the two if you've watched both, and why? Is there something you value in either that isn't the pure catharsis I honed in on? Answers to those and any other thoughts you may have bouncing around in your head are welcome down below. Thank you so much for watching though, and as always, an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, Carjose, and everyone else whose support helps make videos like these possible. Links to that Patreon if you'd like to join them, my shirts, and everything else are either down below or on the screen right now. Be sure to hit that like button and click that bell for notifications so you know whenever a new video goes up. You can also follow me on Twitter or Twitch. Thanks again for watching, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.